everybody, welcome. This is Voyage with SoulSearchAndDestroy, and I have with me a special guest from all the way on the other side of the world, Genoa, Italy. Please welcome 𝗦𝘂𝗀𝗍, or as those of us in the VaporFam community know him as, La Videoteque. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. How you doing?
I am doing great. Fall has finally come where I am, the land of endless summer. What about you?
Well, here it's 9 p.m. and everything is going smoothly.
So on that note, speaking of seasons, I just want to plug La Videoteque's newest album, which was released on October 4th. It is called Seasons, and it is definitely worth checking out. We are about to talk about that. So all of you, after this interview, go straight onto Bandcamp and have a listen, and maybe even buy yourselves a copy. Now, let's dive right in. First of all, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into Vaporwave to start?
Well, my first approach to the genre was as a listener, of course. The first album I ever heard that was Vaporwave was Floral Shop, a milestone in the genre. But I can't remember why or how. I certainly know why I started making my own music in the Vaporwave world. I mean, it was because of a breakup, and was a very painful experience. And so I tried to find ways to deal with all this suffering, and found that Vaporwave had everything that was useful to me to express myself in that particular circumstance. So I tried to approach the genre with my first album, and then I found out that it worked, and little by little I progressed.
Yes, I can hear that every time I listen to your music, like the sort of evolution that you've gone through with each of your albums. Like there feels like not only a distinct set of songs with a distinct personality, but it feels like a distinct period, not just evoking in history, but a distinct period in the creator's life. There's something very I'm not going to say the word personal, but I am going to say there's something very, closely connected and intimate and human about the way your albums and their progression works. And it seems that a lot of really great artists, especially in this community, come into this genre and into this movement after a difficult time, and as a way to sort of rebuild themselves. And that sounds like a little bit like what you've done.
Yes, it's a cathartic experience. I mean, I don't know why, but surely it helped me a lot. And if there's one thing good that this relationship, which ended, did, it was that introduced me into the Vaporwave producers world. I'm grateful for that. I'm really satisfied with what I've done so far, and I hope that people enjoy what I do. And I think that if they can mirror their sensations and their feelings into my music, that's my main goal. I mean, that's all what I want to do.
I mean, I think that's a beautiful reason to even make music, because there is something very inherently human about music that can't be denied. And that goes into my next question for you. So every single one of your albums, from your newest release Seasons to your Mallsoft special VHS Dreams, every single one of your releases has a story behind it, like some sort of conceptual theme. How about you tell us a little bit about how you come up with these themes? How do you find the samples you use, and how do you come up with the original music that you incorporate into it?
I've done so far 3 concept albums, which are The Theater of Our Mind and VHS Dreams, and the last one that you mentioned, which is, of course, Seasons. With VHS Dreams, which is the second I've done, I had a song after a song after a song after a song. I just had to stop at one moment because it was getting too long, way too long. And I thought, well, this is the time to stop and reorganize what I do. Well, musically speaking, I try to put in the Vaporwave genre certain elements which come from my own culture as an Italian. More specifically, I'm talking about our 70s musical background, which is made of progressive rock bands. as far as themes are concerned, that particular album, which is VHS Dreams, is really inspired by Italian artists such as the 𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗃, or I don't know, French poets or philosophers. 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗀𝗃 was one, and surrealism. I think that surrealism and pop art as two artistic movements influenced so much and shaped what vaporwave is, because if you analyze what vaporwave is from an artistic point of view, there are surely elements which are connected to surrealism and to pop art. And it's interesting because surrealism is an European movement where pop art is an American movement. So it always comes to blending our our cultures, our influences.
Yeah, I will say this for my fellow countrymen and women and just country people in general. We are not the most cerebral of people. This is a relatively younger country. I know that for better, for worse, you decide. Yes. And this is a relatively young country, like I was saying. We do not have the, from at least America as it is now, does not have the longevity, the hundreds upon thousands of years of history and culture to draw from that, frankly, Italy and your fellow European compatriots do. And so, whereas pop art's a rather young form of art in the grand scheme of things, even though Vaporwave, I think, that's why Vaporwave has become such a global phenomenon, because it has that surreal backbone to it that a lot of us here in the US didn't really think about at first. I mean, it was made as a critique, but I think it's because of this international, movement and people such as yourself who make these very clearly conceptual albums that incorporate a true philosophical and, cerebral edge to it that I think has made this genre, it's elevated it from a niche into a grand movement in its own right. And because music and philosophy are so deeply inextricable, I think that's a move in the right direction. And by the way, VHS Dreams, I can hear the sort of philosophical Cocteau inspiration when I listen to it. It does feel like a sort of a meditation of sorts, a sort of melancholic existentialist thesis. I wish you'd been around making music while I was still in college and writing papers about that sort of thing. I think that would have helped.
I think that all of my music really is has a lot to do with dreams and with the oniric world. That's why it's so close to surrealism too, because that's what they do. That's what they did back in the 20s, I think was. 20s and 30s of the last century.
Oh, yeah, the surrealist golden age before Dadaism took over. Yeah.
And if you take a look at the 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃's paintings, it really is vaporwave 100 years before. I mean, that's what they took certain elements, as we all do, and they developed their style and their images and whatever.
Yeah, they reconstructed the past to create a path forward. And I also hear that sort of surrealist edge in Theater of the Mind, your other album.
When I did that, I wanted to, very boldly, I must say, I wanted to do an album for all the people that of our generation. I mean, I don't know how old you are, and I'm not gonna ask, because that's not what a guy is supposed to do with a woman. What I wanted to do was to create an album, a conceptual album, in which all the people from our generation, which is the vaporwave generation, born in the 80s or 90s, and they lived through their childhood, through that period. I tried to put some existentialism into that and a certain critique to society, and very sad note it was that the last song is about a nuclear holocaust, because that's dealing with an hypothetical future. Very sad note is that I released that album, and something like a month later, and the war in Ukraine started. It all started with the Russian and everything they're going through. And when I recorded that particular song, I thought, well, maybe this is too pessimistic. I shouldn't be so pessimistic. But sadly, reality reminded me that I'm I was looking through the light lenses.
Yeah, but that's what existentialism is, and that's what I think you're touching on, like the joy and the fear that is inherent with human existence. And I think that particular album tapped into that particular part of the human psyche, that sort of tension between a joyous memory and a desire for a joyous future, and also the pain of these memories and also the pain of a future that's not always certain. And it's hard when real life sometimes has a way of reminding us that we are vulnerable, that utopia is probably not going to be a thing, but at the same time it's never bad to strive for it. And music is one of those ways that inspires people to go forward. So that's why I love that album, and that's why you put it so eloquently. So that leads us to talk about your newest release, Seasons. Why don't you talk a bit about Seasons?
Well, Seasons, it's all about seasons.
Okay.
That's surely that's way easier as a concept to start with. I only found out that after I listened to the whole thing from start to finish, I thought this is another one of those existentialism pieces, because if you listen closely and you take a look at the development of the track list and whatever, it's really a journey. The seasons are a metaphor for the evolution of our own feelings. The album starts really in an innocent way.
Yes, it does.
Then you as you go along, the colors changes and the mood change. Of course, the winter part of the record is the really dark one, and one can for sure use this album as a metaphor for going through an emotional breakdown or a breakup, or because it all has to do with a trauma happening. And then the process of acceptance.
You're right. It starts off very innocent, very sunny, very spring and summer. And then it grows more like contemplative and perhaps a little more introspective as it goes into winter. It's just like how in real life we don't plan our moods for the seasons. It just happens that way. That's just how it works.
The principal rule that I had to follow while I was writing it was I had to follow my sensations connected with the season I was going through. I think, what are the most specific feelings you're feeling while it's, fall? Then I went on and I put them down in music. But that was the only rule I had to follow, really, very instinctively. Yeah.
Well, it worked out for the best, I should say, because it is an extremely coherent, and it has a personality, even though it's also got a philosophical, contemplative, introspective bent to it, like your previous two full albums. It has a different feel. You mentioned earlier Macintosh Plus, and I could hear that influence in the original Flower Shop, especially in the first half of the album especially. It was sort of like, it reminds me of that movement, solar punk, which is sort of like a holistic, ecologically friendly view of the future.
Yeah.
But you downplayed it so that it didn't feel too utopian. It felt uniquely human. There's some pain in there. There's some imperfection there. And I think that is the key to what makes Vaporwave so enduring. We want to build a better world, but we have to acknowledge that we are human and frailty and faulty.
Yeah, absolutely. That particular theme of accepting ourselves as we are is such a strong element for VHS Dreams. Because there was all that metaphor connected to the mirror figure in that one album. And basically, the turning point in the plot of VHS Dreams is the acceptance of our own mortality.
Speaking of a presence, a surrealist presence, I couldn't help but notice the mask. So I imagine there must be a story behind that. Would you like to share with us?
Yeah, this mask here, it comes from the Commedia dell'arte, which you mentioned before.
How did I know?
And yeah, this particular character, I think that it was inspired by a character that originated in my hometown, which is called Tartaglia, but it's like a rereading of the character, because Tartaglia basically means someone that has stutter. I don't have stutter, but I think that I can express myself better through music than through words. And since I can express myself properly in English, that's perfect. And since what I do when I write music and record music is try to express dreams in a way that suits to reality, because we're all gonna listen to it while we are not while we're sleeping, but while we are awake. We have to somehow translate these dreamy feelings into something that we all can comprehend. And so that's basically what I do. I try to take this half into this half, because I try to express what I feel, what I'm dreaming, but with music, which is something real and not unreal.
I think that suits Vaporwave, and that suits your music very well, because for the longest time, this genre has thrived on anonymity, people not telling you who they are, showing who they are. And only recently that's sort of gone away, but we still have our masks that we put on in order to be better artists. Like, to really be ourselves, we kind of have to put on a mask that ironically represents who we are.
I also think that's more interesting. I mean, since you don't get to choose the face you have, why can I change something like that? I mean, as long as it suits me, I think that's perfectly fine.
You come from a different culture than myself and a lot of other Vaporwave musicians. You are Italian, you are Genovese, and how do you see where this genre is going, and what sort of elements from your culture do you like to put into the genre?
I don't see Vaporwave dying anytime soon, because it's already dead.
Yeah, allegedly. It's dying every couple of months or something.
Yeah, it's always dying. Yeah, I mean, it's been dead at least for the last 6 or 7 years. But I don't see Vaporwave dying anytime soon, just like, I don't know, punk never really died.
No.
Except for Green Day. I mean, well, that was only a joke. And,
was it though?
And where is it going? I don't know. I think we'll have to figure it out. I mean, people will start to use AI tools to maybe produce their own music and write new stuff and things like that. But it's not something that I'm fond on doing, because I don't need an AI to express what I feel. I mean, but there's nothing wrong with that. I like to experiment and to try different things and changing my approach. I try to explore and try to, I don't know. I really don't know where it will go. And I wish this isn't the case, but I think that Vaporwave will be cast aside, will be put aside for the sake of the new generation nostalgia. Which will be no longer focused on the 80s and 90s, of course, but on the early 2000s. For the Y2K, I don't think that Vaporwave will be dead as a genre. I mean, I think that it's really difficult for a genre like this, which is born on the internet, from the people, by the people, for the people. I don't think it will die out soon.
Yeah, if it dies at all, because apparently, like you and I have said, it's been dying over and over and over. Declared dead, but even though its heart's still beating. Here's the thing about artificial intelligence and how people have been using it versus how it probably should be used. Using it as a crutch or replacement as opposed to a tool. Kind of like how synthesizers, when there are so many people I knew growing up who detracted synthesizers, who detracted drum machines, saying they had no soul. Violins don't have soul either. It's up to the musician to use the instrument as an extension for their soul. Yeah. And AI can be like that too if it's used responsibly. I think that's what you and I are both responding to, the fact that some people use it as a crutch. I think people will experiment with it, just like people experimented with all those different synthesizers and all these new digital tools we have at our disposal. And it'll be interesting to see how that affects the sound. And as for your critique of the Y2K coming in and encroaching on the 90s, I am seeing some of that, but I think some Vaporwave artists are smart enough that they take elements of all these different eras of the early digital life, incorporating that together so it becomes one big movement. I think we'll see more 2000 stuff potentially supplanting the dominance of the 80s, but at the same time, I don't think those elements are going to go away. It'll be interesting to see. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see them coexist. And what I'm worried about is 5-10 years down the line, people are already nostalgic for the early 2010s, and I'm like, it's a little bit too soon. A little bit too soon.
I've seen that too. I've seen people here in Italy say, "Oh, but don't you remember how good it was when we were all locked up during the lockdown?" I say, that's basically 3 years ago. How can I can be so nostalgic for something that it's only been like 3 years? Or people saying, "Oh man, do you remember how good life was in 2016?"
2016.
I don't remember that.
I mean, I think the period between 2016 and 2022, that's setting the bar of nostalgia a little bit low, a little too soon. But yeah, no. I have people also nostalgic for the early lockdown. I'm like,
but why? I mean, why are you nostalgic for something so out of this world? I mean, it was something so completely out of the blue, and it wasn't a particularly happy time either. So why would you be nostalgic for something like that? I can't figure it out.
Maybe they were either sadomasochistic or agoraphobic or a combination of both. But you know what? Someone's trash is some other person's treasure. So we're not gonna hate on those people.
I think probably they all have agoraphobia, as they say. That's a good title for a song, for a track. I should use that, agoraphobia.
Yeah, sort of. Maybe your next album will sort of, be a deep dive into the sort of person who thrived in lockdown. You could sort of make a concept album about that.
For sure. The next album, I think, I'm already working on 3 different projects because I always try to keep myself busy. And I'm working on a concept album based on 𝗃𝗃𝗽𝗃, the sci-fi writer. I was walking down the street in Genoa and I entered in this bookshop and I saw the cover. I took a look at the plot of the narrative and I thought, well, this is a good idea to make an album. In the past, I never used a lot of sampling. Recently, I thought that I think I'm getting good at it. So I think that it's really interesting because I think that us as vaporwave producers have a peculiarity. I don't know, a peculiarity.
Yes.
Which is we're not only musicians or producers, but we're also like archaeologists. We have to dig up pieces of music which have been maybe forgotten for years. Obscure Japanese records from the 80s or early 90s, or music that was used in the commercial. I'm recording a piece of music right now which would be perfect for a forecast, saying what's the weather tomorrow. And that subtle music that's in the background. We like very strange things.
Yes.
Weird. Definitely.
The genre wouldn't be what it was if we didn't love strange things.
Absolutely. And that's one of the most fascinating things that vaporwave has to offer. And the beauty of it is that there are no rules. You can sample whatever you want.
Well, awesome. Matteo, La Videoteque, grazie, tutto grazie. This has been fantastic.
It's been fantastic for me as well. Grazie di tutto. Grazie per l'ospitalità. Thank you for having me. And wish you all the best with your new channel. And I think you're doing a real good job in spreading the culture about vaporwave and synthwave and all the genres that you're talking about, because there isn't really any channel on YouTube, as far as I know, doing that. So it's good. It may attract new people to find out what vaporwave is all about, and maybe they get more interested, and maybe we'll have new producers as well, because as I did, I was a listener and then I became a producer.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Prego, first of all, thank you. And, you know, well, that's the idea of this channel, you know, sort of spreading the message and sort of, like you said about us being archivists, creating the musical equivalent of the 𝗬𝗏𝗍, where everyone gets together, appreciates this lost, obscure media in a whole new context, and keeps inspiring people, you know, like you said, looking back to build a better world, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that one characteristic, one specific feature of the Vaporwave movement is that there are no boundaries. Even when you're using samples, you're basically creating new stuff, absolutely new stuff, from stuff that's already been published for 30 or 40 years. But it's so creative. The process of sampling is so full of expression freedom. You know, you're free. You're really free in as far as expression and creativity is concerned. And it's really that really fascinates me, and it pushes me to go on and explore more and more and more and more. It's an endless search for the perfect song, the perfect sample, and of course that will never come, but that's what you're striving for as an artist.
I call it the carrot on a stick mentality. That the carrot's right in front of you, so you just got to keep going until you get it. You may never get it, but it's always going to be right in front of you. Well, thank you so much, La Videoteque, for coming and joining me today. And everyone, please remember to check out La Videoteque's music. Go on Instagram, go on Spotify, go on Bandcamp, go on SoundCloud, and have a listen. You will not regret it. And if you want more interviews with great people like La Videoteque, then don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel right here, Voyage with Soul Search and Destroy.
Thank you very much. Grazie di tutto.
Grazie tutto. Ciao, everybody. Remember to be good people.